Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a wrap-up, a long overdue wrap-up. I have books that I read in May, starting May 1st up until now. So that's a lot. I think I have like 24 books. I'm not sure. I'll count later. It will probably be in the title. Probably. So I have all my stuff on my Goodreads. I'm just gonna go through all the books. These are all the books, plus a lot of audiobooks and a few ebooks. So I have quite a few, and we're gonna go through them all. I should have organized these books first, but I didn't. This is The Dreamers by Karen Thompson Walker. I actually listened to the audiobook and then I bought the physical book. It's basically about a quarantine. It follows probably like 7 different storylines, but it's so good. It's so interesting. Basically there's this like virus going around and it's like a sleeping virus, so it puts people to sleep and it just follows them around. It's great. I gave it 5 stars. There's so many storylines. It's hard to follow at times. It makes the book really good though because they kind of intertwine at times and it is very interesting. I also think it was kind of hard to follow because I was listening to the audiobook, and I think it would probably be easier to understand if you actually read the book. Oh, there was like science in this and it was great. It was very approachable. It wasn't like the type of science that you're like, holy fucking shit, what is going on? It was like a good science. The characters and the story is so easy to connect to, and it's so pretty. Oh my god, it's so pretty. And I feel a deep connection to this book and I love it. Also, I have my Starbucks here. Next. The next book is... Okay. I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I gave this book 4 stars. There's a movie now. I did watch the movie. I like the book a lot more. The movie made me feel very cozy, which is weird. It's good. It's weird. It's good, but it's supposed to be weird. This book, man, what can I say about it? It's just a mind fuck. That's really the description that I can give you. I really don't know what to tell you about this book besides it's weird, and you should probably go into the book knowing nothing, because I think that's your best bet. The book was slow at times. It was very weird. I'm not sure that I understand the significance of some things, and I think I would need to reread it to really understand, but I think when I reread it, it is possible that this will be a 5-star. Yeah, and it's like a psychological thriller, which we love. At least in this house we do. Hell yeah. Oh, we have the bottom book. Next book is The Farm by Joanna Ramos. Oh, Joanne Ramos, sorry. This is about a farm where women go and they get paid to be surrogates. And it's just about that, really. Yeah, it's just about, you know, being a surrogate. I thought the way it made it sound was that it was going to be like, oh, I'm a surrogate, but I fell in love with the baby, so I'm going to kidnap it. Definitely not what it was. It was much more boring than that. So don't go into it thinking that. I gave this book 2 stars. I honestly didn't really like any of the characters. I found a lot of them boring. I hate 8. She's so annoying and selfish and such a bitch. I loved Reagan. I think she's so cute. She's still not like amazing, but she's the best character in this book. It's very lackluster, very boring, just honestly not worth it. It's interesting at times. The concept is really cool, but the execution lacked. I don't know. It's just this book had so much potential and it just was trash. Would not recommend. Next book was an audiobook. It is Girl, Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. I gave this book 3 stars. So yeah, it was a very quick read. It was fun. She has a bright personality, which I love. So it was good in that sense. Like, she's a good storyteller, but it was written from a very privileged Christian white arrogant viewpoint, but she does seem kind of like aware and open-minded for the most part. That was really my main takeaway. And then I listed the best part and the worst part. So the worst part claims that you are responsible for your own happiness and fails to consider privilege at all. Like, it just spews like, happiness is a choice. You can, like, if you are sad and depressed, you can wake up and your life can be rainbows and roses. And it's just like, that's not how it works. And a lot of things are out of our control. I get what, like, she meant, but just the way she articulated it was so wrong. There are some good takeaways. The biggest takeaway that I thought is that you should keep promises to yourself because you wouldn't allow others to continuously break promises. And that was like, wow, that's true. Because I hate it when people break promises, but I do it to myself all the time, and I shouldn't do that. So that was my biggest takeaway. But yeah, it was 3 stars. Not as good as I thought it'd be. Everyone said it was really, really good, so I was thinking that it would be, but it wasn't. Next book is Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. I actually found out that Christina Lauren is 2 people. One of the girls' name is Christina. One of the girls' names is Lauren. I actually listened to the audiobook of this, and then I bought the used copy, just like the Dreamers. Yeah. This one's actually from a library. It's from King County Library System, WA. Does that mean Wyoming? I don't know. Twice in a Blue Moon is about a woman who, or more so a girl, who is the daughter of some famous person, and she meets this guy, they fall in love, and then he's kind of an asshole to her, and then they go their separate ways, and then they reunite. This book, again, 5 stars. It's just so cute and sweet. It's a fun, easy read. Like, it was very, very quick. There is like a cringeworthy sex scene, which I don't like. Honestly, I really am not into sex scenes in my books, but it was relatively quick, and it made me feel weird though. I wasn't really into it, but it has like so many fanfic vibes, and I love fanfictions. So yeah, love this. Next book, it's also by Christina Lauren, and it is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. I listened to the audiobook, and I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was gonna be so good because Twice in a Blue Moon was, and I was like, oh hell yeah, Christina Lauren, but then it was not great. Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating is about a friendship, and how they aren't dating. I'm sure you can see where that's going. Yeah? Cool. It started off really good. It had potential. It had like this friendship that was like goals, and it was great, and then it got boring, and it was just weird. There was like an awkward bloody sex scene that like I was not into. It was lighthearted and fun for the most part, but it just like got boring, and I wasn't into it, and it got weird. And the epilogue was like way too long, way too detailed. Like, I really didn't need to know all that. Next one is Educated by Tara Westover. Yeah, Westover. This book is a memoir. It's about a woman who grew up in like a Mormon, but like way secluded life. And her family is just honestly fucking crazy. Let's be honest. This book is insane. Like, what? Oh my god. I gave it 4 stars just because I don't know. It wasn't a 5-star for me. It's really good. I have a hard time reading memoirs, and so I found this difficult to rate. It was really, really good. But it was boring at times. It's very interesting, very fascinating. I would recommend it for sure. It's so crazy. It's very frustrating and upsetting. Like I said, it's boring at times. Like the part when she goes to school, I'm just like, snore fest. And I love Tyler, Tara, and Angie. They're great. So yeah, it was a good book though. I would recommend it. Next book is a 5-star, and it is Wherever She Goes by K.L. Armstrong. Wherever She Goes is about a woman who witnesses a kidnapping and no one believes her, so she takes it into her own hands. Into her own hands. I loved this book. This made me feel warm and cozy. The relationship and the ending made me feel warm and cozy, and I thought it was great. The characters were fantastic. The story was great. It was really interesting. There was like a weird scene though at the end, like the ending like kind of went a little wonky and it was very odd, but I was okay with it. I liked it, but it was just it didn't go where I was expecting, and I was like flabbergasted by where it went, and I was like, this is weird, but I like it. So yeah, love this one. Next is another 5-star. It is Marlena by Julie Buntin. Oh my god, I love this book. I think about this book all the time, honestly. It's a contemporary, and it's about like a friendship between two girls, and Marlena is the one girl that goes missing, and it's told from the other girl's perspective what her name is. Oh, it's Kat. Her name's Kat. There you go. Just kind of about Marlena and what happened to her and everything, and I just, honestly, it was so good. The characters are easy to connect to. They're so easy to fall in love with. It's definitely relatable. The storyline is really simple, but somehow it's like crazy enticing as well. I wrote in my review that this book cannot be properly condensed into a review, and I still stand by that. It's so good, but it's so like simple and mundane, but it's just phenomenal. That's the best I can do. Next book is Breaking Free: How I Escaped Polygamy, the FLDS Cult, and My Father Warren Jeffs by Rachel Jeffs. I, again, thought this book was really, really great. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was super interesting. It was really gross and upsetting. I think like 3 pages into the novel, it like talks about rape or sexual assault or something. And it's just kind of ridiculous. Like, the whole book is like absurd. It's fascinating though. One of my comments, I said, very interesting, very gross and upsetting. I can't believe how brainwashed and ignorant some people are. Sometimes not their fault, but still. And then I also wrote fuck Warren Jeffs, which I think is very valid. The next book I listened to was an audiobook. It's Gone Girl. If you don't know what Gone Girl is, oh, by Gillian Flynn. If you don't know what that is, it's about this couple and the wife goes missing and the husband's trying to kind of like figure out what happens. I gave it 3 stars. Here's the thing. If I hadn't watched the movie, I think I would have given it a higher rating, but because I watched the movie, I knew everything that was going to happen, so I wasn't like super into it. Although I thought it'd be fine because I watched the movie a million years ago, but the movie screenplay was written by Gillian Flynn, so it's gonna be like super fucking similar, you know? I said, why do people like this book so much? It really wasn't like great. Like, the writing wasn't great. It was boring and slow majority of the time. Obviously, like, the ending, the twist, we all know. Super fucking clever. Wow, 10 out of 10. Never would have thought of that. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's not great. I think I would have liked it more if I hadn't seen the movie, but eh. I also hated the way that the husband talked. Like, the way he spoke just, like, got on my nerves. And, like, I don't know. There was just something about it that I was like, no, man. Next book I read, actually I listened to it, is The Girls by Emma Cline. I gave this book 3 stars. I wanted this book to be so good. It is about a girl who gets caught up with some people who are loosely based on the Manson family. That's what it's about. I thought it was going to be really, really interesting. But it wasn't. I loved the concept, but it didn't really go in depth at all. It didn't really go into detail. It felt incredibly short, and like nothing happened. Like literally nothing happened in the book. It was weird. Also, it like went back and forth between like real-time chapters, so like where the girl is now versus like where she was like back in the day when she was like with the like Manson family. The real-time chapters had no significance. Like I've thought about this a lot. There's no reason for the real-time chapters. Unless I miss something, there's no reason for them. Like, I really don't get it. So, yeah. The next book is Albatross by Terry Fallis. I gave this book 5 stars and I loved it so much. It's about this kid who's in high school. His high school teacher is like testing this theory about sports. And essentially like your measurements will add up to be like the perfect measurements for a specific sport that you will be an expert in or something like that. And this guy, the main character, happens to have the perfect measurement, like the perfect measurements for golf. Never played golf before in his life. So it's about him playing golf and becoming like uber duper famous as a golf player. And yeah, that's what it was about. It was a feel good story. It was really good. There was like a little bit of romance. There was like some funny stuff. There was like, it was great. All around. Fun time. It's relatable. The characters are very, very easy to connect to, which was great. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I just really liked it. Next book is Anna Kendrick's Scrappy Little Nobody. This is a memoir about Anna Kendrick. I gave this book 3 stars. It was fun at times. It was an easy read for the most part. It was funny, relatable sometimes. The chapter order really confused me. Like, it really doesn't make sense. Because she, like, organized it into, like, different sections. Like, she had, like, a moving to LA section and, like, a boys section. It was just weird because the, like, point of each of the parts was, like, a different thing. But they overlapped at the same time. It just didn't make I don't understand why she organized it the way she did. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know what to say to you. It just really doesn't make sense. It was boring at times. It was pretty interesting. I did learn some new stuff that I have now forgotten. But only read this if you like really love Anna Kendrick, because it's not worth reading otherwise. You know how some memoirs are like, oh yeah, regardless of whether or not you like the person, this is a fun time, you should read it. This isn't one of those ones, so beware. Next one is an audiobook. It is titled Fight or Flight by Samantha Young. Essentially, it's about this girl and this guy. They meet on a flight, they hate each other, and then they like have to kind of like work together, not really, but like kind of, and it's about like their relationship. Ooh, a little romance. I gave it 3 stars. It was an easy whatever read, which I love. There was lots of sex, which again, like not my cup of tea, just not my thing. It felt like there was no real plot. Like there was no point to the book. It was just like there. It exists, but there's no like reason for it. It's super fucking dramatic. And I really love Caleb. I want a real life Caleb. I think he's great. He's a little like messed up and toxic, but I think he's great. Next book I read is If You Tell by Greg Olson. This is a true story. It is about the Canuck sisters and their mom. Where do I even start with this? It's about the mom's treatment of the sisters, and everything kind of went down with that. It's a very upsetting, horrific story. Or, I mean, it's not even a story, it's just like it's real life. It really happened, and it's kind of crazy. Well, I mean, it is crazy. So this was definitely hard to read, but it was very interesting. But it was very, very heavy. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was really good. As far as like what happened and the telling of everything, I thought it was great, but I just had a lot of problems with the writing. The ending was really rushed and unsatisfying. Like there was so many loose ends. I know it's real life, so not everything can be tied up in a little bow, but as far as like the author, like I think towards the end, the author did a really poor job in his research and everything, and he he really missed the mark on the ending, I think. I like that each chapter in part was focused on, you know, different incidents, which I thought was good. The chapters are really short, which I love, but there was way too many. There was like, I want to say there was like 87 chapters. It's repetitive. There were a few times where I was like reading this and I was like, hadn't I already read about this like twice? It's slow at times. It's a mess organization wise. It didn't really make a bunch of sense. This felt like a rough draft, you know, and then he needed to go in and do the second draft and like really focus on the organization and the ending, and that would have been really great. And it lacked depth. It was very surface level. It told you what happened, but it didn't go into it. And I don't know how to describe it without like just telling you to read it, because it's really hard to explain. It was very surface level. It told you what happened, moved to the next thing, told you what happened, moved to the next thing. There was no, I don't want to say emotion, but like kind of. There was like, there wasn't depth to it. That's the best I can explain it. I don't know how to explain it other than that. The next book I read is an audiobook. It is Wildflower by Drew Barrymore. I gave this 3 stars. Honestly, the only reason I picked this book was because I just really wanted to listen to a memoir. It was interesting. It was fun. Drew Barrymore is very, very good at telling stories. I wish it went more in depth. Again, this like, it told stories, but it just like told random stories that didn't really mean anything, that didn't really amount to anything. I wrote in my review, it tells experiences, not a story. And that's exactly what it is. None of the experiences that she wrote about connected in a way. They didn't have an overall, you know, purpose or anything. She just was like, oh yeah, these were some interesting experiences. Let's like talk about those, and like that's it. Yeah, and she just seems like a really good person. I had a fun time listening to it, but it just wasn't anything great. Next book I listened to is Perfect Little Children by Sophie Hannah. I gave this book 3 stars. I listened to the audiobook. It was honestly a mess. It was a little hard to follow, which could have been because I was listening to the audiobook. It was slow at times. It was interesting enough to finish concept-wise, but it just wasn't great. Essentially, it's about the main character happens to like drive by her old best friend's house and sees her best friend and her best friend's children out like in the yard or something. And the children are the same age that they were 10 years ago. And so it's like just exploring that. And obviously like she becomes like obsessed and she wants to know what happened, and it's like, well, they can't be the same age, like that doesn't make sense. So it was just about her trying to figure out what happened. It was interesting, but again, nothing to write home about. Next book. The Silent Patient by Alex Mckayla something. This is a debut novel. I was very, very impressed. I gave it 4 stars. The Silent Patient is about a woman who kills her husband and then refuses to talk. And that's what it's about. I thought it was really good. I originally was going to give it 5, but then as I like thought about it more, I was like, nah, homie. The book was written very nicely. It was very digestible. It was very easy to read, and it was very enjoyable. It was quick and to the point for the most part, but a lot of the characters were surface level. It was very hard to connect to them, and it didn't really go too much in depth really for any of them, and a lot of the characters seemed kind of pointless. There were a lot of characters in this book that were there to give a piece of information. That was their whole purpose, but the author kind of tried to make them seem deep without actually succeeding. It was weird. There were some loose ends. I wish the author went more in depth and made the story more complex, because it really could have like engulfed you if it did, but it didn't, and it sucked. But the book was really good, and I will for sure read this author again whenever he comes out with a second book. Next is The Line Game by Ruth Ware. I hated this book. I gave it 2 stars. I was reading this book, no joke, for like 17 years. The Line Game is about a group of girls who used to go to boarding school together, and who knows, maybe something happen that involves like a dead body, possibly, who knows. And then it's just about that and them dealing with the aftermath of whatever happened in current time. So yeah, but man, I don't like Ruth Ware's writing at all. Like, I can't stand it. It is way too descriptive. It describes everything to death, and it's way, it's so much. Okay, there was this one scene, right? And they were like going to the art room, and it was like, oh, we walked through this archway of leaves, and we saw the walls, and the walls looked like this, and the ceiling looked like this, and the floor looked like this, and then it went to this other door, and this is what the door looked like, and then we opened it, and then we went up this staircase, and it was a metal staircase, and this is what it looked like, and then we got to the top, and we saw the ceiling, and we saw the walls, and then we saw a different door, and this is what the door looked like, and then we got into the art room, and that was like the quick version. Like, it was, it did it, it was ridiculous. It was so absurd. Oh my god. Okay, the first half was very boring, so it was so difficult to get through. The second half is decent. I was definitely able to like read it more towards the end because a lot of the setting was already like set up. There's an interesting twist. It's kind of predictable though, and I'm just really happy that I never have to read this book again. The next book, oh god, I hated this book. This is controversial. Call Me By Your Name by Andre Alsamon. I'm so upset about it. I gave Call Me By Your Name a 1-star review. If I could give it less, I totally would. Let's start off with the writing. So, the writing is very poetic, or at least it tries to be. It tries to be incredibly deep, and it fails at that, and it's too much, and it's totally not my vibe. It might be your vibe if you're into that type of writing, but for me, I don't like it. Like, get to the fucking point, you know? So, there's that. I didn't like that. Right off the bat, I was like, wow, this sucks. My second point is that it's gross. There was a peach scene. I don't think I'll ever look at peaches the same. Every time I see peach, I want to cry and puke at the same time. It's gross. And then the age gap I thought was also gross. The main characters are 17 and 24, and there was a relationship between them. The book romanticizes sexual assault and grooming. It was predatory and manipulative. It's very creepy. It made me incredibly uncomfortable. Overall, it was just like boring. I love that there's LGBTQ plus representation, but this wasn't it. And honestly, so after I read this book, or I think while I was reading it actually, I looked up the author because I was like, okay, this book could honestly have been just like written innocently and like they didn't even like think about it. But then I looked up Andre Alsamon and I discovered that there was an interview that he did, and in said interview he said that he finds 12-year-olds attractive. And so, knowing that information, I do not believe that this book was written innocently, and I believe that it was written from a predatory viewpoint and perspective and author. That's what I think. Those are my opinions. You cannot change that. I thought this book was terrible and I want to burn it. It was bad. It was gross. It was not good. Oh, in case you don't know what it's about an age gap relationship between two males, one 17, one 24. The 17-year-old is a literal child, immature person experiencing love for the first time. Also very like sheltered and privileged. And the 24-year-old is a graduate student / professor thing. So like, and from America. The other guy was from Italy, so I don't know, but definitely like no excuse. It was bad. Okay, next book. It was also bad. It was 2 stars. It is The Mothers by Britt Bennett. How do I even describe this book? It's about this girl, Nadia, who falls in love with this guy and gets pregnant and then has an abortion. They live in the South, and then it just like it's complicated, and it like jumps on to them being adults, and it just wasn't good. I listened to the audiobook, and I think I probably would have liked it more if I read the physical book, but I thought it was boring. I didn't really care for the characters or the story. I thought the characters and the story both lacked depth. There was really like nothing to connect to. I really couldn't grasp onto like anything, and it was just boring. I mean, there were a few parts that were interesting, but it was like far and few between. The next book I read as an ebook, and it is Crown to Traitor by Kate Callahan. It is the first book in a hellish fairy tale series. I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was so great. I really loved the book, and I was so sad when I finished it. Essentially, it's about this girl who's like Lucifer's daughter, and she wants to escape. That's what it's about. It's really good. I would recommend it. I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting. Clara is a total badass. She's the main character. The one problem that I had with the book was that the world just wasn't really established that well. Same with the characters. It jumped right into the action, which I love that it did it so quickly, because I hate like long beginnings in anything, like songs, movies, books. Like, it's just too much. But this one like jumped into all the action right away. Like, first page there was like a fight scene basically. But because it is a fantasy and it's about this like crazy world, I wish that it was like set up and established more. It didn't like affect the novel negatively, but it definitely could have benefited it. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Okay, the next book I read, it was another ebook. It is Jackie's Christmas Kitchen by Tilly Tennant. I'm not sure if this book is even published yet, because I did get it on NetGalley. I gave it 3 stars. It's about this girl, and she starts like a cooking class with the local church. And it's basically about that, and there's a romance. There's a teenager that's just like so annoying and rude. Yeah, the description of the book was like way off. It felt very flat. Nothing really happened. There wasn't really much depth in anything. It tried to be like super deep, but it like wasn't at all. It was like a heartwarming, like fun story, and it was like Christmassy. I did enjoy it, but it just like wasn't great. And that's the last one. I can finally stop talking. That's all the books that I read. Hopefully I'll do another one of these by the end of the year. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. Hey, what's up? How you doing? That was a lot. Yeah, if you read any of these books, let me know. If you want to read any of these books, let me know. Leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you care. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Okay, peace.